Previously on Major Crimes.
I have some news about Rusty Beck. The lab found a familial match to the boy in our criminal database. Paul Dunn. Looks like Rusty's paternal uncle. Paul has an older brother, Daniel Dunn, who I bet will test out as Rusty's biological father. What you tell the boy is up to you.
What's this? It's what we're going to talk about over dinner?
This week's episode was directed by Rick Wallace, and it was written by Ralph Gifford and Carson Moore. The episode title, which, might be a good thing to know, is Out of Bounds. It's 6 out of 10 for the first season, so we only have 3 more, and the next 3 are a bit of a doozy. The summary is the death of a quarterback threatens to spark racial tensions at a local high school, and the investigation puts a member of the Major Crimes team in grave danger, which we now know is Amy Sykes. And our tease from last week is, Amy, you're in danger, girl, and boy, was she ever. The A story is the death of Anthony Lewis, a 16-year-old kid who was found dead by a black and white. He was shot to death in his car. The LAPD looks into his history and comes to find that his brother was or is a part of a gang, and they look into the brother to see if possibly the brother did something that would get Anthony killed. It doesn't turn out that way. They go to the high school, which is a fake high school, but they go to the high school and find that Anthony's brother was going after a kid who got into a fight with Anthony, and one thing leads to another, and Amy ends up getting her head beaten into the ground with sound effects and all, and they arrest Anthony's brother, and they arrest the kid that Lamar, who is Anthony's brother, was going after. Through bringing in the kid, they also bring in the parents, because per just normal law, you can't question a minor without their parents being there or advised that they are being questioned. So the parents come in, and Sharon realizes that the father of the kid that Lamar was chasing had created an alibi for his son, thus making Anthony's death premeditated. And you have your A story for the week. The B story is that Rusty is still on the fence of meeting his father, and Sharon tries kind of to convince him to talk to his dad, and through DCFS, which is the Department of Child and Family Services, they pull up a file of Daniel Dunn, and pretty much Daniel Dunn has a clean record. Nothing stands out that would set off any red flags, and Rusty still doesn't want to meet him. He is content with where he is. Which makes Sharon happy. But going back to the A story, what did you guys think of the A story?
The A story was actually really interesting. It looks like a gang situation, and turns out that it's not. So there's a bit of an underlying. It fits into the theme that we've been kind of going into of does the A story fit the theme of the season, which is fairness. So is it fair that they immediately jump to the conclusion that this kid was involved in gangs just because his brother was? But also, you've got Taylor throwing his weight around like anyone cares. Okay, I'm sure people care, but Taylor, hello. Because apparently one of his youngest son goes to that school too, so this is very personal for him also. So he is really, really riding Sharon about this one, and and there's an interesting moment where he's trying to, you know, push her into something, and she pushes back, and he threatens her job in response. So that's an interesting moment. But
If this murder is personal in nature, Lamar may lead us to the killer or killers.
That's only if he believes Julio. This is exactly the kind of thing I was hoping to avoid when I put you in this office.
Holding Lamar Lewis any longer could leave us vulnerable to a lawsuit. And since I need to let him go, I'm making the best of a situation.
no, I mean it's a great moment. He's trying to put his, you know, assert his authority, and it's coming from a more personal position. And Sharon pushes back because she's like, okay, you know, I'm doing my job. Back off, bozo. And he fires back at her in a very lame way that I really, my personal opinion was she really doesn't give a crap, because he's Taylor. Because he's Taylor is going to be my reason for everything, I guess, from now on. But no, there's a bit of a power struggle there, and I think there's a bit of a power struggle there, not necessarily because she is being insubordinate, but because he is in this position that I'm not, at this point in the series, convinced that he has earned. And she's obviously much more, what am I trying to say? How am I trying to say it? She has a better handle on the regulation. She has a better handle on the law, and she proves it time and time again. It's a little something I like to call Sharon dancing around him. And she does it so well, and she does it so often. And sometimes I think he gets just a little petty. And the way he threatens her job in that particular scene is just very, very petty.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
I mean, and it was also interesting too at the beginning. Sharon, when they're at the crime scene, she gets out of her car in her badass black trench coat, and Provenza kind of makes a smart-ass remark because it's Provenza, but she issues orders, and they tell her that there's been a hold on notifications, and then she first jumps to, well, why? And then second, she kind of just like puts on the brakes and then rewinds and says,
What exactly makes this murder a major crime?
And we find out that Taylor ordered it because of the fact that this is just a hotbed of gang activity, which relates to Jen's point, was that is it fair that they automatically assumed it was gang related? But was it them as a whole who assumed, or was it just Taylor because Taylor was personally invested?
Yeah, but that is something that Flynn said later on, because they pretty early on thought that it was not gangs, but more like road rage, because of the evidence they found at the scene. But as Andy said to Amy later on, as long as they can't prove it, it's still going to be gangs, even if it's not, because it's hard to make the gangbangers understand that what happened there was not done by any rival gangs. So it doesn't really matter if they think it's gangs or not, as long as they can't prove it, which they did in the end, so it was all good. That was actually a very emotional scene between Sharon and the kid's father.
If I help you, will you be sure that Diego gets to keep playing? Please. Will you help my son stay on the team?
Yes, I will. But first you have to sit down with an attorney. You've got to tell us everything you've done, and you have to assure us that Diego was not involved.
When the father, like, begged her to make sure that that his son could still play on the team, because it was not the kid who killed Anthony, so it wouldn't be fair. There we go with the fairness theme again. To punish him for something that his dad did. And in that moment, we kind of see Sharon tearing up and being all emotional, and like that theme.
Well, I mean, for me, I don't think it's fair for the kid, really, in the end, because here this kid is, what is he supposed to do, go play football some more and be the star quarterback, and with the knowledge in his head that the only way he got to play football was because his dad, or not necessarily just playing football, but playing football as the quarterback because his dad killed the quarterback. Is it fair to the kid that, or if he even goes back to this high school and plays football? We don't know. But still, it's unfair for the kid. I have a lot of like little points we could touch on later as just a whole, but just moments of unfairness towards just certain characters on the show. Yeah, this episode was just touched on a lot of, like, I think this was one of the the episodes that kind of stayed really true to the theme of fairness, and what is fair and what's unfair and what makes things fair, which I think is good. Any other thoughts on the A story?
I'll agree with that, and this episode itself, this episode is a powerhouse. If you think about all of the different themes that they're pulling into it, and then as I mentioned to you guys earlier, there was a point that I was wanting to make. Keeping with the A story, we get to that moment where Amy gets hurt, and okay, so they mention, you know, in the promo coming into the episode that a member of the team, you know, is in danger. But if you think back over the show in the previous, you know, 5 episodes, but even going further back to the closer, this particular group of writers and producers does not do gratuitous violence. We don't really see a lot of that with, you know, I'm talking about the core cast. Obviously, there's violence in the crimes and what have you. But with the core cast, I mean, if you go back to the closer and you think about it, okay, so Brenda got hurt once. She was tasered, taking down a serial killer in like season 2, season 3, somewhere in there. Julio got shot in season 4, which that was a breathtaking, you know, just blow your mind kind of moment. And then skip forward a couple of seasons to season 6's Old Money with that horrific fight scene where a guy is trying to kill Flynn. I mean, these moments are spaced out and they're very specific. So coming into this moment with Amy was just, I mean, and they went all out with it, as you mentioned earlier. Even, I mean, they didn't like sugarcoat it at all. Even with the sound effects, I mean, she is literally getting the crap kicked out of her, and there's nothing that anyone can do. Julio is trying to get there, and then you've got Sharon and Andy and Provenza and Buzz and the rest of the team stuck back in the electronics room, basically watching this happen and being completely, I guess, as horrified as we are. And it really, I mean, it makes this episode as a whole stand out. Not so much because it was violent, but because of the emotion that it evoked. And I know you're going to ask about favorite moments later, but since I'm on this particular subject, I'm going to go with mine. And it's at the end of that scene, as Provenza is grabbing his jacket, not even hesitating, and he's saying, "Find out where she's going. I'm headed there now. I'm getting my car." And if you think back over the previous 5 episodes, Provenza is the one that Amy has annoyed the most. He cannot stand how she got that position. He cannot stand how eager she is, how much she's kissing Sharon's ass. I mean, she is driving him absolutely batshit crazy. But in this moment where all these horrible things are happening, none of that matters. And I think that speaks to this particular character as, I mean, we call him Lieutenant Grumpy Pants because let's face it, Provenza can be very grumpy, but he has a heart of gold. And he can also be very professional, and he looks out for his people, and he doesn't even hesitate to be there for Amy when she needs him. And that particular moment, more than any other moment, even the B story, sticks out for me with this particular episode. And I think it might just be one of the better moments of the entire season.
Yeah,
Well,
I totally agree.
Well, definitely. I mean, we'll go over, I think, later, like, when we're all done with the season, like, we'll pick and choose some of our favorite moments. But I agree with you. That is definitely one of those. There's a few of them with Provenza this episode where, for me, it kind of went like, wait, what? That was one of them. Another one was when he called Sharon by her name. I think that was one of the first times we've actually heard him say Sharon instead of Captain or Raider or just Captain.
And he takes that moment to comfort her.
Yes.
He takes that moment to comfort her too.
Also, I mean, what's nice about Provenza's story arc in general, just, I mean, going from the closer to now, 6 episodes into the first season, is that regardless of who is in that chair, in that office, he will be loyal to. It took some time with Brenda. It still takes time with Sharon, and we're, 5 seasons in, but it's easier now than it was then. But him calling Sharon by her first name is one of those moments where you start to realize that here he is, he's starting to get comfortable. With her, getting comfortable with the idea that, okay, yeah, he's not in the power position, he's not going to be. And he also started to he defended her when Taylor started jumping down her throat. And he even has the line where he says,
"Say what you will about it. The woman knows the rules."
And I thought it was one of those moments where it's like, okay, here he is acknowledging her, and what she does and what she's done is for the good when it works. And it works in their favor. So
and keeping with that theme that we're settling around Provenza, as you said, there's that moment when he says her name, and then he comforts her.
Look, this is one of the big differences between running internal affairs and working homicides. You send people into seriously dangerous situations, and they go because that's the job. And Sykes did that job today. Damn well.
But, Lieutenant, what did I miss? I thought it seemed like we had the situation covered.
We're never covered. You have a partner, you have a gun, you have a camera, you have SIS and vests and dogs and patrol cars out the ass, and people still get hurt. Sharon, there is no defense against bad luck.
Which I think speaks to his leadership skills too. That he can recognize what he needs to do even though he's been riding her ass all this time.
It's the start of the new Provenza, I think. Is that it for A story?
I think so.
I think so. I mean, there's another really great moment with Julio where he really acknowledges, we start to see some of his respect for her. But then Julio's always respectful, but it's just a really nice moment. where he acknowledges, how she solves the case. But then he's Julio.
Yeah.
He's adorable.
There's another awesome Julio moment. Sorry. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay. There was this moment when Julio reported that he had run the paint chips, and he uses all those technical terms for what he had done. And Tao's all like, "What? You did it without me." You can insert that clip there if you want. And Julio's like, "Yeah, I was in a hurry." I absolutely love that.
We talk about the Flynn and Provenza dynamic a lot, but I have always loved the Tao and Julio dynamic. I mean, they're so funny together. I mean, they really are. I mean, if you think back over, not that they've had many moments to be able to really get into it, so to speak, but the two of them are they're funny. They really are. I like those Julio and Tao moments.
They both
Are
have
scary.
their...
Badass.
They have their moments. Raymond, in interviews and whatnot, he's very quiet, but he's funny. So it's nice when they write in little bits and pieces of humor for Julio, or even if it's not funny in the script, like not written funny, Raymond finds a way to make it funny. So like when he's showing off his spectrometer, what have you, for his paint chips, you never hear that. Like you would never think that in a million years, but it's like the way he delivered it is just like, okay, he's now showing off. So it's like, it's Julio. So if that's it for the A story, the B story is Rusty and the ongoing saga of, do I want to meet my daddy? Do I not want to meet my daddy? And Rusty's general consensus is, no, I don't. But at the beginning of the episode with Sharon and her obsessive-compulsive disorder on how to do her dishwasher, which, I am guilty too, because when she's like, where are you gonna put where's that cup going? I'm like, it goes on the top. Before, because I mean, I've seen the episode before, and there's notes and all of that, but it's just like, you put your cups on top, you put your plates on the bottom, and if you have more rooms for cups, then you can put whatever else needs to go down, like whatever else you don't have room for. But first, the cups go on top. I understand that logic. Like, I'm like, it's one of my OCD things too. So I totally understand her like little freak out. And he's just like, but I'm sorry. But it's also I think a way for her like to get him to help around the house too, or him like trying to like, hey, look it, I'm over here. I'm trying to help.
Yeah, but that we get a lot of that in this episode actually, when we see it a bit more pronounced later on when Sharon comes home to get changed, and Rusty made breakfast.
Yes.
And he's like, yeah, I can do that every morning if you want.
Yeah.
He's like so eager to be useful to her, like to prove that that she gets something out of him being there as well. That he doesn't just want to be a freeloader. He wants to contribute. He wants to make sure she wants him there. Which, I mean, it's totally ridiculous because she's absolutely in love with him already. There is no way she does not ever want him anywhere else. But yeah, he doesn't know that yet.
I think it really speaks to Rusty's abandonment issues. That he's going out of his way to prove himself useful, because now they've got this situation of his dad, and he's scared to death that she's going to get rid of him, that he's going to have to leave, and he's going to have to go with this person that he doesn't know, that he didn't even know existed because he thought he was dead, which is another lie his mother told him that has now been revealed. And I think it's sad that he's not all that surprised. But I think it's sad too that that he thinks he has to go so far out of his way to prove his usefulness to Sharon, so that she will keep him. But going back to the dishes thing, how
Sidetrack.
funny is it? Captain Control Freak. No, I'm just kidding. Because I'm the same way. They go in a certain way. I'm sorry, but how
My
funny
thoughts
is
all
it?
go in the same direction when I put them away.
How funny is it though? She's cringing as the glasses are clinking together, and I'm just like,
Yes, it is
you
the
can tell she's trying very hard not to take it away from him and just do it herself.
It is the most annoying sound on the planet. It like when I say I understand, the sound of glass clinking against glass is just like nails on a chalkboard if somebody who has that problem.
It really is.
So
I
just like back to the B story, where I don't remember where we left off, so we're just going to start over. So the B story, Sharon and her glasses. So moving on from Sharon and her glasses and Allie's abnormal OCD relation to the glasses, Rusty asks if there was a way that Sharon could get background information on Daniel Dunn. And legally there wasn't, because there's really no criminal there's no criminal reason to get information. So in the surveillance
You mean the reason, don't you?
I know exactly where Jen wants me to go, and so that's why I'm taking my time. And it's all going to get edited too. So,
You're killing me here.
I know. So in the surveillance of Anthony's brother, Sharon brings up to Buzz, Taylor, Flynn, and Provenza that Rusty has expressed interest in wanting more information on his father, and she needs to find a legal reason to search for him. And
Yeah.
Hi, I'm an everyday citizen looking to make an anonymous tip. There's a man by the name of Rusty's dad who may be connected to a murder. Also, thank you for the fine job you do. You're an American hero, and I don't tell that to you nearly enough.
A legal option, Lieutenant.
okay, so it's an audio podcast, but if you guys go back and watch the clip and you look at Mary's face, it is the best thing ever, because it looks like she's trying really hard not to laugh, and she wants to roll her eyes at the same time. Jen, you are dying.
Shut up. This may be my favorite Flynn and Provenza moment of, like, I don't even know. I can't even articulate it completely. Just the way he whips out that phone and he calls Provenza, and Provenza's like, what the hell, why are you even calling me? But he answers him, and they're standing right freaking next to each other. And Flynn's like, even it goes so far as like, and by the way, you do a really great job. And I'm like, you guys are freaking ridiculous. Yeah. They're like, I don't know if I want to strangle them or if I'm going to laugh. And the look on Buzz's face, he's like, I'm just going to stare at my computer and pretend they don't exist, but I'm laughing on the inside. And you can see the corners of his mouth, like I don't even know if it's a Buzz or if it's Philip trying to make it through the scene or what. But the whole thing is just freaking funny as hell. And there's just this moment where she just kind of looks up and to the side and it's like, I can't beat him. I might as well join him. And it's just one of the best moments ever.
Basically.
But on the topic of Buzz sitting there quietly grinning to himself. There was also that moment when Taylor was writing Sharon's ass about the case, and she's like, yeah, so but this is how we're doing it, and if, by the way, if you're going to take over the case, just let me know. So, and Buzz is just sitting there grinning like an idiot, like, yeah, you tell him. Yeah.
Because he was just like, haha, that's my boss. You are dumb. She's gonna kick your butt, and I'm gonna be here watching.
And can we just take a moment to talk about the fact that Philip, bless his buzzy little heart, doesn't get many lines. He really doesn't. And that's just a catastrophe that I won't get on that soapbox. But he doesn't get many lines. But he has, outside of GW and the Provenza thing, but he has some of the best facial expressions on the show. Like, he can say so much without saying a word. He doesn't need the line. Yeah. He's looking at you like, are you really this stupid? Sorry. I love Buzz. Buzz is the most adorable one there. Got the most, I mean, hello, Mr. Snarky Pants. I mean, I'm good.
I mean, and there was the scene with Rusty and Buzz, where Buzz drops off the bag of, I'm going to assume it's like a burger or it's a sandwich or something. But Rusty's like, is everything okay? And he's like, no, there actually isn't. Detective Sykes got really hurt, and we're trying to get through it. And I thought that was a very interesting, moment to see that even Buzz is affected. Granted, Buzz watched the damn thing, watching Amy Sykes get her head beaten to the ground, but it was just that the man of little lines, the man who has a drinking game done after his lack of lines, got people to drink.
Yeah. Poor Philip. It's funny though, because we've been rewatching The Closer from season 1, and he didn't. I completely understand why Philip's friends had the drinking game thing going, because I think maybe he had one line in the entire first season. I mean, like I said, he doesn't get much, but when he does get a line, or when he does get a moment where the camera is centered right on him, I mean, it really pops. So, going back to what how we originally got on this topic, and the way he was grinning like a little, I don't even know, while Sharon was putting Taylor back in his place, I think it speaks a lot to his skill that Philip doesn't have to say a lot. He really doesn't. I think he's a little underutilized.
Yeah, but we're getting there.
There's more coming for him.
Spoiler!
Yeah.
But I think
I'm still rolling from the quote-unquote phone call. Because he's an everyday citizen.
He's an everyday citizen and wants to file a report on a guy by the name of Rusty's dad. But
and Provenza does a really good job. He doesn't tell him that nearly enough.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But we were talking about, you guys, so one of you, I think it was Jen, who mentioned a scene between Sharon and Julio. And Julio, near the end, says, you don't get to pick your parents. Which is interesting to me because it might be a little bit of a piece of foreshadowing to what's coming up for the end of the season. And and definitely moments within the next 4 episodes. But I just thought that was an interesting kind of, not necessarily a throwaway line, but I mean it was in relation to the case and the fact that the kid Diego, his dad killed his teammate and whatnot. But it just, the fact that he was telling it to Sharon was interesting to me, just because, like I said, I took it as like foreshadowing. But I wouldn't have known that then because I hadn't seen the episodes yet. But going back now, it seems like a little bit of piece of foreshadowing.
Because back on that moment, the camera, if I remember correctly, when he says that to her, doesn't the camera kind of focus in on her for a moment, like she's making the connection to Rusty, like he can't pick his parents, but
Rusty walks into the.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth
focuses
between them.
on Rusty walking in. So yeah, there is definitely a visual connection as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think it really is a great bit of foreshadowing. Because at the time that we originally watched this, we didn't know what was going to be coming. And knowing now, what we didn't know then, it was a great piece of foreshadowing. It was a good catch. Good job, Allie.
If nobody saw my very cheesy, proud, I did it smile. Not that anybody needs to see it. But going back, Sharon and Rusty are talking, and he says, I have one more question. And I mean, and it's heartbreaking to me because here he is, like Kate said, he's trying to prove his worth and trying to prove to her that here he is, he can do this, he can stay, he's a good kid, and he really doesn't want her to throw him out. And it's almost to him seemingly like here she was trying to push this topic of parents and whatnot because she doesn't want him. He's used to the idea that nobody wants him. And so he's just, I think, almost trying to gear up for that, oh yeah, no, I want your father to come into the picture so that way I can get rid of you. I think he's expecting that. And when she says, no, if you weren't here, I would miss you, it kind of, I don't necessarily think it surprises him, but it's just like it confirms with what he had hoped, that no, she really didn't want him to go. He's happy where he is. And then the last line is Sharon goes, good, let's try to keep it that way. And I'm like, and end of show. End of Allie. End of forever. Goodbye. Because it's just like, that's the mother and son relationship that so many people now who are watching the show and who are up to date, those are the moments that everybody comments on that they like, I think, the most. Because you see how much Rusty has been craving that. And the fact that he's actually got it and actually has somebody in his corner who wants him around. It's like, it gives him some self-worth.
Right. Yeah, he's beginning to believe in himself the way that she believes in him, I think, is where you were going with that. And no, I love that scene. I was with you. There has been such a beautiful evolution for that relationship, and we start to see it the latter part of season 1. And I think it really speaks to going with that final scene between them. It speaks to who Rusty is as a person, because he's been a bit of a little pain in the ass. I mean, he's been riding her ass, he's been giving her trouble. I mean, but he's coming into this more of this he's starting to get comfortable with her. He's starting to maybe trust her just a little bit. I mean, we see it earlier in the episode when she's first leaving to go to the crime scene, and he's like, what, so you're going out every night now? I mean, and he's not giving her a hard time for the sake of giving her a hard time. It's more like he's teasing her, you know, and she kind of grins because she's like, yeah, I'm going to a crime scene. It's not like I'm going out to party. So he is getting comfortable with her, and he does want to. I mean, we're seeing that he wants to stay there, but you know, Sharon tells him that at the end of that scene that she's going to take him home, and then she has to go and see Amy at the hospital, who has been hurt, and Rusty just very, I mean, almost like he's afraid she wouldn't want him there, asks if he can come along, because this is somebody that he knows too, and someone that he's vested in, and he wants to go and make sure that she's okay. And we're starting to see more of the vulnerable child and the potential that Rusty has, to be less of the little smart aleck and more of the young man that we know now, you know, five seasons in. And it's starting to head that direction, and looking back at it, it's just absolutely beautiful.
I mean, and I think his line of, oh, so what, you're going out now that I'm done with whatever it was called, I think also was kind of a call, not a call, but like a, hey, like, oh, so now that you don't have to be here, you're just going out. Like, it was almost like a, you don't want to be here now that I don't need, like, now that you don't have to be here. And that's fine. I think also
twofold, maybe, like he's teasing her a little bit, but he's also pushing to see how far he can push.
Yeah.
He's still feeling, he's like a, I don't know, he's like a baby who has been placed into a new environment. Which is, you know, kind of true. He's feeling out his little parameters, how far can he go, and he's still exploring his new environment, but at the same time, he's also becoming very comfortable in the environment.
He actually says that in the end when they have that talk in the conference room.
Do you want me to meet him so like I could leave here and live with him?
Of course not. Unless that's what you wanted to do.
It's just that I don't even know the guy, and I made a friend at school.
Did you?
He's on the chess team.
Really?
Yeah, and now that I'm out of emergency care, I could join the chess team, and they could use me because they are terrible right now. And I like my history teacher and the laptop they gave me, and I don't know, I thought we were getting along. Aren't we?
Yes, we are really well.
That the fact that, you know, the clip where the part where he mentioned that he found a friend who's in the chess club and that he wants to join the chess club and that he likes his teacher, and you know he's telling her how he's, you know, settling in and how he actually likes where he is at. So I really like that. It's I think Jen touched on it earlier, that he's trying to show that he can be that good kid. I mean, he didn't have a chance to be that kid earlier in his life because of circumstances, but now he's got the chance, and he wants to prove that he can be that person that Sharon believes him to be.
Right.
And that he actually is deep down, but you know, he just needed a little help to actually get there and to actually do all these things. And I think it's kind of remarkable for a teenager to be that way. I mean, usually at that age, they're kind of obnoxious and annoying, and you know, volunteering to help out in the house, really. I mean, what 16-year-old boy does that? But yeah, it kind of shows how desperate he is to make sure she wants him there.
Right.
At the same time, though, let's think about it, because in a lot of ways, Rusty is a lot older, emotionally and mentally than he should be, because of his past and because of what he's had to do to survive, and because of what his biological mother has put him through. But in a lot of ways, he's also much younger socially and emotionally than he should be at that point. So, I mean, there's two sides here that are playing at each other. So, he's far more mature than any 16-year-old boy should be. He's lived more than any 16-year-old boy should be. But at the same time, he hasn't had the experiences that he should have had as a 16-year-old boy. The normal things, chess club, friends, school, a parent that believes in him, that will let him do these things and thinks that he can do these things. So, yeah, I mean, we're starting to see that at this point in the season, and he's starting to believe it, and it's just, it's really lovely.
Yeah. Is that it for Rusty?
I can't help it. I mean, a lot of people dislike Rusty and think that it's this extraneous thing on the show, but I love this kid.
I mean, thinking about it, like going into depth with it, he definitely has grown over the last few years.
He really has.
Anything else for Rusty Beck and the ongoing saga of his father?
I think it's really curious. I mean, they mention the fact that his mother lied to him. He thought his dad was dead. But he is so used to being cast aside and not wanted that he is terrified of meeting this person. But he's putting down this wall. Like, he's like, okay, that's great, maybe, but I don't want any part of it. And I think it's really sad that he's so used to not being wanted that he doesn't even want to explore that. So, I think they played this one really well. This one was well played. And two, I mean, no, go ahead, Kate, go ahead. I'll make my point after you're done.
I think he mentions, he kind of actually says it when, in the end, again, in that last discussion with Sharon, when he says, well, I didn't know about him, but I'm not sure he even knows about me. So why do we have to upset this thing we have going there for something, I mean, he doesn't know I exist, so what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
But was that your second point, Jen?
No, that was it. That was it. I mean,
okay.
Rusty didn't know his dad was in the picture, and his dad he was in the picture. So, why should those two lines cross? But now that I'm saying that, I'm thinking of another point to make. And I don't know if it's because I know more about her character now, 5 seasons in, or not. But it seemed a little uncharacteristic to me, thinking back on it, that Sharon kind of makes a promise to him that, okay, then we won't go there. We're done. That I'm closing that door, because she kind of says to him, then, okay, fine. I mean, she kind of lets that wall drop, and she's not going to pursue it anymore. And it doesn't seem like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Sharon to me, but again, I'm 5 seasons in, so that might be why it doesn't seem like Sharon to me.
I don't think she was necessarily closing the door. She told him. She said that all I'm doing is presenting you the facts as promised, and it's really up to you to decide if you want to meet your biological father. And that's when Rusty said, "No, I don't." So I don't think she was necessarily closing the door. She was just giving him facts. She was leaving it all up to him, therefore making and going with Rusty and what Rusty wanted to do. So if Rusty wants to meet his dad, then Sharon will go along with it.
Okay, maybe it's because I know what happens in the next episode, but it seems to me like she's making that promise to him without. I would expect her to know better. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but
Yeah.
going into
Maybe it's my own. It could be my own knowledge of how. I guess you guys out in the West Coast call it DCFS, but here where I'm at, we call it CPS. It may be my own knowledge of how that works, but once they open that door, they have to go through it. So to me, for her to make that promise, it seems not at all like Sharon, because it's like she's not fully explaining to him what could possibly happen, because now Flynn has opened that door by calling his little friend at social services and being like, hey, baby, what's up? And getting that information about Rusty's dad. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it speaks to...
I've been awake
I think
too
it
long.
speaks to Sharon wanting to keep Rusty. I think that's what it is. I think she's shutting down on what she knows because she wants to keep him. And if he wants to stay with her, she's going to hold on to that. And she's not going to think about the rest of it until it becomes a problem. If it becomes a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think the mother is being put in the forefront here.
I know what you're saying, and I agree. I think she probably at least suspects that could happen, but with a kid like Rusty, I guess she wants to not open that particular can of worms until she has to. Because just broaching the subject.
Maybe it's more about hope. She's hoping it won't happen because she wants to keep him.
I think that's definitely part of it, but I think it's also that once she starts to explain to him what might happen, he would blow up just over the possibility that he might be forced to go with this man he doesn't know. So
But the other thing is he wasn't asking for more. He was just asking on information about his dad. He wasn't asking for okay, now that this has happened, what goes on? Now, next week's episode, we can come back to this episode. Well, no, because I'm like, that's what's difficult about doing this podcast, knowing more than we know. Knowing what we know, it's difficult because for those of you who are watching it brand new, I apologize. But for those of you who aren't watching it new and already know what we're trying to avoid, spoiling, welcome to America, where you create words on the drop of a dime. It's just
it only counts if you put a hat in front of it.
I did not. All I heard is it only counts if you put a hat on the blah blah blah. And that's about it.
That's with a hat.
No,
yes.
It only counts if the hashtag in front of it. So it can be a word. So hashtag spoilering.
Okay, whatever.
Welcome to our new.
It's difficult doing this podcast without spoiling anything and talking about like next week's episode, which is called look at that segue because I'm going to end this now. Well, we can, but whatever. Which goes into next week's episode, which is called The Shame Game. It's written and directed by a gentleman called Leo Getter. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, for real. And I'm
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We made the point a few podcasts before that
I'm
we hope we
really
say your name right.
sorry if I'm butchering your name, and I know I'm not pronouncing your name right. So I know I'm not. There's no hope. Um, there is no hope that I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm sorry. Um, and Rusty gets an unwanted surprise. Um, so that kind of feeds into Jen's um, open door deal now that the ball with DCFS has started to roll down the mountain. But going back to this episode, were there any of your, I think we kind of covered favorite moments to an extent or extensively. Um, Fashion and random points.
I don't think there was a lot of. Sharon was rather blackish, I think.
Black and purple.
So there was not a lot there, and I didn't notice a lot of. But I have to admit, I watched it it was 3 a.m. when I did my rewatch, so I didn't pay as much attention to matching as I could have, I guess.
What I do, what I wrote down was Amy, when she got her head beaten in, Amy was in very bright colors, which was, I mean, not
of
odd, but it was a juxtaposition.
Coral top thing.
Yeah, I liked it.
But if I remember correctly, except for Amy in the episode, in the part of the episode where she gets hurt, for Amy, I want to say that the colors were very subdued, which I think kind of went with the whole theme of the episode. Because like you said, Sharon's in dark, or she's in purple, and I want to say most of the characters were, even when Julio is kind of in his casual look because he was undercover during that moment that Amy got hurt too. It's all a lot of dark colors, purples and reds and so forth and so on. Amy was really the only one that was in anything kind of bright. So I think the subdued colors may have spoken to the subdued undertone of, you know, oops, Amy got hurt and that sucks. Because it did. I felt really bad.
That's a lot.
A lot. By that
That's
point,
a
I
lot.
had really started to
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the poor girl had like broken, what was it? Broken jaw or
like a broken jaw or something. Like what the heck?
yeah. I mean, the woman in a concussion, like that hit that. Y'all heard the sound effects. Like that was a hard hit to the head. Granted, the woman's a soldier, but still,
No.
no.
But she holds on to them, like the dude's gun, right? She holds on to it, like, the whole dude is kicking her ass, and he is like beating her head into the concrete, and she is hanging onto that gun for like, I mean, like freaking hell, kick-ass Amy. I mean, go baby, go. Right?
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess that's self-protection there, because if the dude got his hand on the gun, game over.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what Diego said, is that he had the gun with him. So I don't know. It seemed like he took it from Amy. So I don't know. But we touched on this a little bit. The season 1, we're kind of coming to an end, slowly but surely. We have 7, 8, 9, and 10, so we got 4 more episodes to cover for season 1. And it's all about fairness, and I said at the beginning, at the top of this podcast, that I have a lot of unfair moments. Unfair to Sharon, that she's getting her job thrown in her face, and the reasoning as to why she is in that position in the first place. Unfair to Amy. Duh. Unfair to Diego. Duh. I touched on that earlier. The dad kills his teammate over a fight/position, and the kid gets to live with that for the rest of his life. and unfair to Anthony because he died of an assumption. The dad assumed that he was in gangs because his brother was in one, and assumed that this gang that Anthony was supposedly a part of was going to come after his kid. So it's a lot of unfair moments, and it's unfair to Rusty too, because here he has this guy who is supposed to be dead, isn't dead, is potentially involved in drugs, not involved in drugs. He really doesn't know. So like Jen said earlier, the kid is afraid, terrified to meet this man, and we don't know why. Besides the fact that his mom lied to him, and the general fact that the guy did not come looking for him, and why and I think Kate brought it up earlier too, is like the man didn't want to meet him. Why should Rusty meet him?
Well, and I think we also have the whole history playing in that. I mean, Rusty has a problematic history with men, with older men. First of all, his mother's boyfriends, or at least one of them, beat him up, and it kind of sounded like the others weren't like really all that nice.
Right.
And then he was out on the streets, and he was, prostituting himself. So to have this guy thrown at him that he doesn't know, and the possibility to have to go with him, that must be absolutely terrifying for him. Because what does that guy want from him? Because every man in his life wanted something from him.
Right.
Apart from the team who just want him to not be a jerk, but apart from them, he has no reason to trust guys he doesn't know.
Right.
And taking the unfairness thing a little further, how about Sharon? How unfair is it to her that she is just starting to maybe make some headway with this team, and she's starting to maybe win their respect, and here comes Taylor, and he's being a bit of an asshat, because he is. Taylor's an asshat. We can admit it. That is his purpose in the show. We love him. We hate him. He's annoying. He's purposeful, but in this particular episode, he's being a jerk. So how unfair is it to her that he is maybe undoing some of the work, or trying, rather, to undo some of the work that maybe she has done to make her place, but then going to the B story with Rusty, she's attached to this kid. She's emotionally involved, but now there might be a parent, so unfair to her that potentially she could lose him when she has invested herself in him.
Right.
So I fairness and lack thereof, this episode is an excellent, example of that.
Is that all for the episode?
Yep.
All right. Well, if that's going to be it, next week's episode, like I said earlier, is called The Shame Game. It is written and directed by Leo Getter. I'm apologizing again. The tease for the episode is there's legal ramifications involving prostitutes. And Rusty gets an unwanted surprise. So, yeah. You guys can follow us at MCPod on Twitter. It's MC_pod. You can just Google, no joke, Major Crimes Podcast, and you guys can find us in like the first 3 things on Google. It's kind of terrifying. My friend from work said, "Hey, did you know that there's a Major Crimes podcast?" I said, "Yes, I do. I listen to it." Which is not false because I do. I have to. Yeah. So you guys can follow us there. You guys can follow us on Facebook. We are going to shamelessly self-promote.
Yeah, the Totally Tony, which is TonyDennison.net. It's a fan site. I believe that the infrastructure for archiving the podcast is already built, so they may find links to previous podcasts
Yep.
there.
Yes.
And we will be posting previous episodes that have been on SoundCloud there as soon as our interweb decides it wants to work and not crash everything else on our network. It's been fun. And we've had really bad winds in Los Angeles, and our standalone box on the street has their double doors wide open, so that's fun. So I'm every day legitimately hoping and praying that nothing strikes the box and my entire house goes like down with the internet. So there's an update in my life. But other than that, yeah, you guys just follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Major Crimes Podcast. It's pretty simple. Just hit subscribe. We've got 8 subscribers in like 2 weeks or a week or something like that. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to our 30 followers on Twitter. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Tell whoever else watches Major Crimes to follow. And every week or so, or every other day, every couple days, every few days, we post links and we post questions and whatnot, just so that way we can try to keep you guys involved. Give us comments, concerns, things you want to see on the podcast, in the podcast. Just let us know what you think. It's a podcast for the fans, by the fans, so let us hear it. And if that is all, we will see you guys next week. Bye.